Welcome to the second episode of the Faithful Fanatic podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Nick Newman. I'm joined with my co-host, Marco Martinez, and we're here to talk the 49ers' devastating loss to the Arizona Cardinals. Marco, what are your thoughts and feelings on that game?
Man, that's rough. That's one you can't let go. Like you keep a team who's trying to build on who they actually are. You keep them in a game for so long, and you could have put them away early, and that's what happens. You keep teams like that with good quarterbacks around, and they're gonna beat you. It's rough.
Absolutely. I totally agree. The Cardinals hung in there the entire way through. The 49ers had the chance to put them away early. They're up 10-0 in the first quarter. They get the ball back. And then from the moment the Cardinals blocked that punt, the Mitch Wishnowsky punt, the game just completely changed. And that was a critical moment, a pivotal moment of the game. Just from that point forward, the Cardinals, were able to take over the momentum and really just come back. They scored a touchdown, the Kyler Murray passing touchdown to the backup, Chase Edmonds, scored that touchdown 10-7, and then just squandered opportunities by the 49ers time and time again that they just weren't able to get the lead up any more than what it was. I like the call there going for it on 4th and 1 from the 1 yard line when it was 4th and goal. I didn't mind that at all. Maybe a different play call than a halfback dive to Mostert, but I like the play call. I like the aggression there. It just didn't work out in the 49ers' favor, but a lot of missed opportunities from the offense, specifically with Jimmy Garoppolo.
See, I personally like going for it on 4th and 1 there at the goal, but I didn't like the personnel they had. I would prefer to see Jeff Wilson Jr. or Tevin Coleman in the game at that time, because once you get to short yarder situations, that's not necessarily Raheem's style of running. So I would have liked to see Kyle Shanahan substitute Jeff Wilson, who we know has a pedigree of getting rushing touchdowns at the goal line. So Absolutely. With that being said, we should probably talk about the obvious. It's the main, everyone's going to be talking about it, Jimmy Garoppolo. What do you think about Jimmy Garoppolo's performance today?
He was off. I mean, I'll take all the heat in the world. I prematurely was messing around about Jimmy Garoppolo's stat line. He had, I think, 135 yards in the first quarter. 135 yards. So here I am on Twitter. Jimmy Garoppolo's on pace for 570 or whatever it was. Da-da-da-da. From that moment forward, he was awful, absolutely awful. He had the nice little Texas route, as I like to call it, because that's what they call it in Madden, to Raheem Mostert, where he just dashed. I think he hit 23 miles per hour, I saw on Twitter, which was one of the the fastest speed tracked over the course of the last 3 years. Outside of that, he was bad. Simply put, he was bad. And Kyle Shanahan was equally bad. And it's just very tough to come to terms with the performance the 49ers put on the field today. It was disgusting.
It was rough. When I was watching Jimmy G and when he hit Raheem Mostert in stride for that touchdown, I was like, okay, that's it. In stride, looked like he's in a groove. And then as the game went on, I'm like, whoa. You're missing so many wide open targets. For example, there was a wide open over the over the middle was down the seam. Dante Pettis was wide open, and instead he dumped it off to someone else. And I was like, wait, you have to trust your receivers. I understand you don't trust Dante Pettis, and you don't necessarily want to be throwing to him in those kind of situations, but who else do you have on the 49ers roster who you could rely on? You have to trust your guys at that moment and allow them to help you and help them make plays so you can win a football game. He wasn't good enough to win a game, and Kyler Murray was the better quarterback today.
Kyler Murray was absolutely the better quarterback today. He did a great job of taking care of the ball, which was one of my keys to the game. Granted, he had that interception that was deflected by Dre Greenlaw, that was intercepted by Jaquiski Tartt. But Kyler Murray did exactly what he had to do to keep the Cardinals in the game and then have them win the game. And I did an NFC West preview earlier this week, and one of my keys to this 49ers Cardinal game was get to Kyler Murray early. He was not hit. He was not really hit over the course of the entire game, and his one turnover was on that deflection. And unlike last year, he took it a step further, not only kept the Cardinals in the game, but did enough to win the game for them. As tough as it was to guard DeAndre Hopkins, who's going to be a problem for the 49ers, for all NFC West teams for the next couple years with that contract extension, Kyler Murray is looking like an MVP candidate, and the defense there was no spy on him either, which was frustrating for me. He had all those long runs, just making people miss, buying time, then taking the ball up the field. And there was no spy. And you got to look at not just Shanahan for what happened on offense, but Saleh defensively. The defensive game plan, in my opinion, was not great, not where it should have been.
So there's a comment here by Rich. Saleh took a big step back. They missed Buckner. The run defense looked solid. I think the run defense looked really solid, but what hurt the 49ers, in my opinion, against Kyler Murray is when your pass rush is being off target and so when you're rushing a mobile quarterback, what you have to do is you have to stay in your pass rush lanes. And there was a lot of times where I would notice Arik Armstead, D Ford at times, they would knife in. So when I talk about knife in, you have a pass rush lane, you have to go straight up field and try to get to the quarterback. And when you knife in, it means you're cutting across. And that opened up so many rushing lanes for Kyler Murray. And Kyler Murray took advantage of that. And when you're Robert Saleh, you can't really put a spy on Kyler Murray because Kyler Murray is so electric. Even if you put a spy on him, now you're playing 10 on 9, essentially. 10 on 10, 10 on 9. And you can't have that. So I would rather have my players in dropping back or in coverage rather than leaving a spy on Kyler Murray. But I do think our pass rush needs to step it up.
The pass rush, where was D Ford? I don't know if I heard his name called once today. I saw a couple pass rushes of his where he went in at the offensive tackle, kind of just stood him up, and I don't know if he was going into spy mode from there where he didn't full-on rush Kyler Murray, but D Ford was nowhere to be found today, and he's Nick Bosa's sidekick. Bosa, he had a few pressures. I don't think he had any quarterback hits, definitely didn't have any sacks. He made some plays, made Murray get rid of the ball quickly early on in the game, but the entire pass rush was nowhere to be found today. And Harry Hyder, his sack, in my opinion, was more of a coverage sack. It was a testament to the secondary actually holding their own for once throughout the game, and Harry Hyder got there, but just absolutely a total letdown on the defensive side of the ball by the 49ers as much as it was on offense.
For D Ford, when you say where was he? He's out of shape, man. He looks so out of shape. His get off was not there. So when your best move is your get off and your speed, and it's not there because you're coming off an Achilles scare that they said was a calf injury, but he says was more of an Achilles injury, and you're trying to get off, you're not going to be as dominant as you actually really are. So when the 49ers have recently, there was talks about them bringing in Ezekiel Ansah, to work out and see if they could bring him in on the 49ers roster because they lack that depth at the edge position. I understand Hyder is the guy that they want there to be that depth position, but they need a true defensive end. Hyder is more of a utility guy up and down the defensive line.
I agree. And Ronald Blair, in my opinion, is also very similar to Hyder. So the real center, yes. The interior of both the offensive and defensive line was a problem for me today. For example, Mason Cole, the Cardinals starting center, gets hurt. They have their backup center come in, and you can't penetrate any pressure up the middle, which was DeForest Buckner's strong suit. He was able to flush the pocket. It was non-existent today. Absolutely non-existent. We're seeing some comments here about Quan Alexander. He made a play where he punched the ball out. I forget if it was Edmonds who had the ball or if it was Kenyon Drake. I believe it might have been Edmonds, but he punched the ball out, and the running back was able to fall on it. So Quan Alexander was out there trying to make things happen. And it was funny because that first series, Fred Warner and Nick Bosa were immediately jumping off the screen. Like, you can tell those two guys are players. And from the rest of the game, they were extremely neutralized. And it was 10-0. It looked like the Niners were going to run away with the game. And then the block punt happens, and the rest is history. Niners lose 24-20.
Actually, with this Quan Alexander comment, I actually think Quan Alexander had a terrible game. He had a lot of missed tackles. In coverage, he wasn't as stout as he normally is. I think he needs to step his game up if the 49ers want to get back to the Super Bowl, or they need to put him at that Sam position and allow Dre Greenlaw, who actually made a play today, and forced a turnover on Kyler Murray by tipping the ball and allowing Jaquaski Tart to get that interception. So that's something we need to monitor because Juan Alexander looked really, really bad.
And we have another comment here. Don't forget about the Cardinals' missed 2 field goals. Zane Gonzalez kept the Niners in the game. If I were to point to one player who met expectations today, who maybe even exceeded those expectations, it's Robbie Gould. Robbie Gould is 50 years old, hitting 50-yard field goals. Good for him. He had a great game today. Outside of Robbie Gould, who can you sit here and talk about played well? No one. Not a single person besides Robbie frickin' Gould. So that's the Niners game in a nutshell, is Robbie Gould's the hero, and everybody else did not look like a Super Bowl contending team. Is that an overreaction? Maybe. But you have to keep in mind this 49ers team 7 months ago was in the Super Bowl. This is the start of their revenge tour. This is not just one game. If you're talking about the Indianapolis Colts and Phillip Rivers, who were whatever they were last year with what's the Jacoby Brissett? Yeah. So it's okay for them to lose week 1. They're trying to win their division with the Titans and the Texans, and the Jaguars beat them. So if you're a team like the Colts who has playoff aspirations, sure, it's week 1. No big deal. This is the 49ers with a Super Bowl contending roster trying to get right back to where they were last year. And every time you lose a game during the regular season, it makes those chances that much harder. The 49ers are going to have a harder time beating the Seahawks, beating the Rams, who we haven't even talked about yet. They play tonight. They still have a very potent offense. You cannot underestimate the Rams. The division race is that much harder right now with the loss of the Cardinals, let alone trying to get the number 1 seed. If you don't get that number 1 seed and you're the 2nd seed, you still don't get that first round bye. And even getting that far is a lot harder now after today. So worst case scenario, the 49ers, I still think that the worst case for them is that they make the playoffs and they're a 5, 6, maybe even 7 seed. I just don't really see a scenario unfolding where they don't make the playoffs. It would be a shock to everybody. But assuming they get into the playoffs, and if they don't win the division, they have to win 3 road games before they get to the Super Bowl. That is not very likely. It's completely stacked against them, which is why I am not looking at this as one loss. It's not just one loss. It's a huge loss with playoff implications down the road.
So I kind of see this as a huge loss. Last episode I said this was a must-win game for us. I mean, you don't want to say the first week of the season is a must-win game, but when you're playing a division opponent who you're trying to get back to Super Bowl, you're trying to win your division and get that number 1 seed, it's a huge game. Do I think they bounce back and go on a win streak? Yes, I do. I do think they bounce back. The offense struggled. They should get Brandon Ayuk back with a true receiver rather than having a bunch of receivers out there who don't normally get as much run as they normally do. So I'm going to hold off, and I'm going to pump the brakes a little bit on that. I do think they're a much better team that they showed today. I think the defense is going to get a little bit better. I do want to see Javon Kinlaw in a little bit more instead of having a platoon of Contavious Street, because Javon Kinlaw did have a few reps. And I was like, whoa, he won those one-on-ones. Now allow your first-round pick to get that reps and get those runs. So I do think next week against the New York Jets, we're going to see a completely different team. This is a team that came into this season saying this is the revenge tour. We plan on getting back. We have one goal. It's a Super Bowl win. That team needs to bounce back, refresh, and say, whoa, hey, this is a wake-up call. If we don't focus on each team that's in front of us, we're going to get our butts handed to each and every week, and we're not going to make the playoffs.
Looking at the Jets, even if the 49ers go and beat the brakes out of them, it's still going to be tough to feel good about that, knowing what happened week 1. Because you're looking at a horrible team in the Jets, another horrible team in the Giants. The Eagles just lost today to the Redskins. When's the 49ers' first test? I'm looking at my calendar right here. Week 5, they got anyway, looking at the immediate future with the Jets, not a good football team. And this loss to the Cardinals is going to leave a bad taste in everyone's mouth until they beat a good team. And that's how I see that.
I think their next test is, I mean, you could say the Eagles, but the Eagles got the brakes beat off of by the Washington football team. The next test comes against another division opponent, the LA Rams, in October the 18th. So the next couple games, I do think they should be able to win. So they should go 4 games in a row. So they should start the season 4-1. So I don't know how I feel about saying that they're going to be struggling, because we also have to realize there's going to be a few teams like the New Orleans Saints that we get to see, that we get to even off this shitty loss. We get to even it out with them. The Seahawks, we get to play them twice. So I do think there's going to be a few other teams that do lose a game, like we did to the Arizona Cardinals, the team that we're supposed to beat. And some of those times you overthink the opponent, and it happens.
So this is where I'm going to disagree with you, is that with it being week 1, there's still 15 weeks to go. This same thing can happen to the 49ers again. Take example of the Falcons game last year. The 49ers, of course, are better than the Falcons. They were better than them throughout all of the 2019 season. Then week 15 or whatever it was, that's when they finally lost that game to an opponent that was nowhere near the level that they were. And if you talk about the Saints, you talk about the Buccaneers, who did not look good today, the Packers, the Seahawks, that game where they lose to a team that's not quite on their level might not happen until down the road. But the door is wide open for it to happen to the 49ers again. And that's my problem. Will it happen to them? That's not a guarantee. Of course, they can completely turn this thing around. And again, I'm expecting them to make the playoffs. But the bottom line is that they started their revenge tour today. You have valid conversations going around about how are they experiencing a Super Bowl hangover, when you could have just put all that to rest. Jimmy Garoppolo overthrows Emmanuel Sanders in the Super Bowl. In his first game back in live action, what does he do? Underthrows Kendrick Bourne for the game-winning touchdown.
That's rough. I mean, I also want to look at it as this is a learning experience. Depending on how this team takes this, it could dictate their entire season. They could take this as, hey, we have to be on our A game because we have a big X on the back of our backs. So we either take this and we learn from it and continue to learn, or we just think about it and, all right, well, it's a division opponent, they're a good team, and let's get to next week. This is going to be a staple to how their season plays out. Terrible way to start your season when you're a Super Bowl contender.
And
let's
again,
go ahead.
I'm going to say I disagree again, because this is an experienced team with a fourth-year head coach in Kyle Shanahan. Jimmy Garoppolo started his 3rd consecutive opening day game for the team. This is not a team that needs to have learning curves. They don't need to learn how to overcome having an X on their back. This is a Super Bowl contending team. You don't go into the game underestimating the Cardinals. What an amateur mistake that is, to underestimate Kyler Murray. For Robert Saleh to not have a spot on him, which I agree they should have tried out more. This isn't a test and feel out how the season's going to go kind of a thing. This is, you have a Super Bowl caliber roster now. Go out there and win enough games to get to the Super Bowl. It's not an excuse. This isn't a feeling out moment for the 49ers. It's not now we know not to take anybody lightly. No, come on. You know what you are. Go ahead.
If you look at it, Kyle Shanahan is playing. His offense isn't the offense he has. He has no receivers on the outside. He's missing his number 1 receiver, Deebo Samuel.
Let me ask you right now. Let me ask you this right now. Did the 49ers have any receivers worth mentioning last year at this time?
This time, no.
And did they win?
They also started the season off to a really weak schedule last year.
Are the Cardinals not weak?
The Cardinals are not weak. When you have an elite, I'm not going to say elite quarterback, when you have a top 10 quarterback in Kyler Murray, that's a legit football team. I mean, if you look at teams with good quarterbacks, you're supposed to win. Kyler Murray is a legit quarterback. Now, Jimmy Garoppolo, he has no receivers to throw to. He's throwing to Dante Pettis. I mean, I don't want to disrespect KB, because I love KB, but he's throwing to Kendrick Bourne, an undrafted player, and then George Kittle gets hurt at halftime. So
whose fault was that?
Half. Jimmy Garoppolo's. 100% Jimmy Garoppolo's fault. He should not have thrown that pass so high, so terrible pass. But besides that, George Kittle comes out hurt. And then Richie James goes down, so now they only have 3 receivers for the rest of the game. I mean, I don't want to sit here and be like, what's the receivers? Because my main thing on who it was Kyle Shanahan, man. Kyle Shanahan, his game plan was terrible.
So, plain and simple, whether you want to admit it or not, Kyle Shanahan got out-coached by Cliff Kingsbury, and Jimmy Garoppolo got outplayed by Kyler Murray. And so most surprising of all is that the Cardinals' defensive line outplayed the 49ers' defensive line. Their front seven was better. They got more pressure. Jimmy Garoppolo was running for his life trying to evade sacks. And going back to Garoppolo, the best play he made today, the most impactful thing he did on the football field today was escape the sack on that 3rd and 10 where he chucked it downfield to Jerick McKinnon and drew the pass interference. That was the best thing he did today. It wasn't a pass of his own that was completed, some mesmerizing play, and it's just pathetic. And it's not how you want to start off your season. And the way I see it is now there's just this huge gray cloud over the season opener for the 49ers where this has the attention of the national media. The NFC champions just lost their week 1 game. So on top of that, there's all these questions about, is the defense the same? Is Jimmy Garoppolo really an MVP quarterback? Are the 49ers experiencing a Super Bowl hangover? Is George Kittle hurt? There's just nothing to feel good about right now at all. And you got the Jets next week. So there's your get-right game. And if they don't blow out the Jets, what is going on in Santa Clara?
I think they blow out the Jets. I think Kyle Shanahan's going to come out really upset, and his offense is going to be extremely hot. And if you get out coached by Adam Gase, we have real issues. Real issues. My problem with the 49ers offensive line, they give up 3 sacks, I believe, all game.
We might have lost Marco there. Go ahead and drop your comments in the section below. I'll try to address them. Oh, you cut out for a little bit. You all right? You back?
Yeah, I'm back. Sorry about that.
All right. No, go ahead.
My thing is with the Arizona Cardinals defensive line, they got 3 sacks, but 2 of them were on Jimmy Garoppolo. So Jimmy Garoppolo held on to the ball way too long. And I want the game film to come out so I can go and look at the game film and see, okay, what is he looking at that I don't get to see from the camera view and why he's holding on to the ball so long. I mean, that's why I like to look at the game film and then go off of that. But I do think he played one of the shittiest games he's played in his entire career. Worse than the Super Bowl. The Super Bowl, the second half of the Super Bowl, it was worse than that. Worse than that.
Yeah. At least in the Super Bowl, he had that pretty good first half, whereas today, and his claim to fame is his 3rd down efficiency. I think he's pretty good on 3rd down normally, or statistically, he is pretty good on 3rd downs. 49ers were terrible, absolutely terrible today on 3rd down, whereas Kyler Murray and his dual threat ability were very successful on those 3rd downs. And yes, Garoppolo did not throw a pick 6 today. This might have been – did he throw – no, not last year.
No interceptions today.
Yeah, no picks today. But the bottom line, where was Trent Taylor? And Trent Taylor was targeted a couple times on 3rd downs in critical moments too to close out the game, and Garoppolo just missed him. So as much as I want to raise the question, where was Trent Taylor today? Garoppolo didn't hold up his end of the bargain to be able to point to anybody else. This is absolutely on Jimmy Garoppolo, absolutely on Kyle Shanahan, Robert Saleh. The 49ers got out-coached, outplayed, and the end result is a 24-20 opening loss to the Cardinals.
As much as Jimmy Garoppolo is getting the blame, our defense was pretty bad, man. Mm-hmm. Our too much soft coverage for DeAndre Hopkins. DeAndre Hopkins had a wide open catch where he should have scored a touchdown, but they rolled him down at the 1. That's blown coverages. That means they're out of shape because when you start to blow coverage, you're not thinking right and you're tired. On the second thing on that, I think Robert Saleh is missing DeForest Buckner. DeForest Buckner provided a pass rush from the inside and freed up a lot of the players. He freed up Nick Bosa, he freed up Arik Armstead, and he freed up G Ford. As much as it sounds weird, DeForest Buckner was the best defensive lineman on the 49ers last year, even though the hype was around Nick Bosa. And that's who we were missing. Someone from the inside needs to step up because the guy they paid, Arik Armstead, was nowhere to be found today.
And this will be something that's revisited for years to come. Should the 49ers have paid the extra $3-4 million annually to keep Buckner in comparison to Armstead? Because I'm in agreement with you. Buckner was the main focal point of the defensive line. Bosa didn't really get that recognition until midway through his rookie year, but Buckner was an established player on the defensive line where Armstead hadn't even broke out until last year. And D Ford wasn't acquired until last year, and Nick Bosa. So it's going to be a question that's valid too. Was that the right choice to pay Arik Armstead over DeForest Buckner as of right now? It's not paying off. We'll see if that changes down the road. And you can't put too much pressure on Javon Kinlaw, but for the 14th overall pick to have that minimal of an impact, I remember him having one tackle today. Maybe he had a second. It was not a very impactful first game of Javon Kinlaw's career. A lot of pressure on him and DJ Jones and Kerry Hyder to carry that DeForest Buckner weight. So we'll see what happens. The team certainly missed Buckner today.
I think Javon Kinlaw had a pretty good game for a rookie. He didn't get as much reps as I thought he was going to get. There was a double swipe move that he had, and he got pressure on Kyler Murray. I thought it was a sack in the end zone. And I was like, whoa, why isn't he playing? We're allowing Kevin Givens to get more reps than a first-round player. I mean, you can't really say what one player is versus the other. I mean, I love Kevin Givens. He had a great preseason last year, had a good season to end off the season last year. But when you draft someone 14 overall and allowing DeForest Buckner to walk, and that player is not on the field, we got problems. Real problems. Because you went and paid Arik Armstead $17.5 million for one good season he had versus DeForest Buckner, who was 40 good seasons in a row and was one of the best defensive tackles in the NFL. I would say a top 10 defensive tackle. And now our defense is going to start struggling. Maybe he was the glue to this defense and it wasn't the D Ford and Arik Armstead. Maybe it was DeForest Buckner and he wasn't given as much credit as he should have been.
No, I agree. I agree with that. They definitely lost a lot on and off the field without Buckner. So very deflating loss. Emmanuel Mosley was getting picked on a little bit. The one thing I really like about Mosley is he's really aggressive once a receiver or a running back gets their hands on the ball. He's a pretty good tackler. Outside of that, though, he made a couple coverage plays, but he was getting picked on. It just DeAndre Hopkins is too much. And if you give Kyler Murray a mobile quarterback, a guy that can buy some time, a receiver like DeAndre Hopkins, what did he have today? 14, 15 catches, 140, 50 yards. He went off. And the 49ers now have to deal with this guy for the next 4 or 5 years with nothing but questions around the cornerback position. Richard Sherman's entering a contract here. Akello Witherspoon, I don't even know if I've seen him on the field defensively today, aside from special teams. I don't know if he got any outside cornerback snaps. K'Waun Williams is also a free agent next year. Emmanuel Mosley is an exclusive rights free agent. What is this team going to do at corner? They didn't address the position this past draft. They're going to need to take a long, hard look at it next offseason to see if it's a top priority, which I feel like it's going to be, if it's not already evident through facing DeAndre Hopkins one time. So the secondary is in question. Jimmy Ward and Jaquiski Tartt. The safeties played pretty well today. It seemed like most of Kyler Murray's damage was done underneath, and it was kind of out of their control. Safeties played well. I'd say the front seven was really bad.
I think our secondary played pretty well during the beginning of the game when they were having Richard Sherman was actually following DeAndre Hopkins across the field. Didn't matter where he was. They were playing man to man. He was following them. And our defense looked a lot better. And then Saleh went away from that. And he went to start playing zone coverage look. And that's when Kyler Murray started picking him apart. Because once you go into a zone, everyone has their own little zones. And if your head is away from the quarterback and not on your man, he's going to either take off on you or he's going to pick you apart. So that's what I started noticing. Like, whoa, Robert Saleh, you should probably go back to a man, because we're starting to get toast in the back end. I mean, as much as I like E-Man, he plays a little too soft because of the zone coverage. So there was one play where I thought he had an interception. He jumped the route. I was like, oh, bam.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, that's interception. Great. But now you have to finish that. You have to, until you anticipated it, now trust what you see and jump it ahead of time. Because he didn't want to give up a big play, and that's what I'm pretty sure he's scared of, because he has that thing from the Super Bowl where Emmanuel Mosley blew a coverage, and he needs to be able to not blow any coverages, or else the fan base is going to call for his name and to get Witherspoon in.
Tough day all the way around across the board. Again, just to see the 49ers come out like that, where they just drive right down the field. That initial field goal where Robbie Gould attempted the 52-yarder that ended up going through, I thought that was a little too conservative there. I would have went for it. I tweeted that right away. Luckily for the 49ers and Kyle Shanahan, Robbie, I don't know if he made a single 50-yard field goal last year. Then all of a sudden he comes in with this big, powerful leg and drives in a 52-yarder. So in hindsight, it might have been the correct call, or was the correct call at the time. I thought it was too conservative, which is why I was in full support of them going for it on 4th and 1 from the 1-yard line. And just a play call, giving it to Raheem Mostert on that dive was, of course, hindsight again, not ideal. But that's not Mostert's strong suit. You don't typically give it to him right up the gut on a halfback dive, and he's not your goal line back. So those changes need to be made moving forward. George Kittle was completely silenced in the second half. I don't believe he had a single catch in the second half. And the team was just so flat from when they scored those 10 points onward.
Yeah, I think George Kittle was not targeted or anything because of his injury. I think it's hurting him. I think that bothered him. But at some point, I mean, you have Jordan Reed, you have Ross Dwelley. You have to use your other weapons you have. I think Ross Dwelley is a better option than going with no receivers, potentially, who we really had. Dante Pettis, Jimmy Garoppolo does not trust him at all. You could see it. So why not bring Ross Dwelley in, someone he actually has a rapport with, and try to use what you have. And I think that's what Kyle Shanahan lacked today. He force-fed Jerick McKinnon the ball, and I kind of felt like it was, during the game, I felt like it was Kyle Shanahan saying, yeah, I made that signing, Jerick McKinnon, that's my guy, throughout the entire game, because he would make a play, and then it's like, okay, you're getting a little predictable now, Kyle. I know as soon as Jerick McKinnon's in the ball. Get out of that little habit you have, and it happened in the Super Bowl, and it happened now. So it's one of those things where it bugs me, because I know Kyle Shanahan is the best play caller in the NFL. But then he goes through his stretches in tight games where he acts like he does not know how to call games, which is kind of weird. But it's the little monkey that's on his back that he needs to get off of. What do you think on that?
I agree where when McKinnon was on the field, he was targeted or was handed the ball a high majority of the times. And my biggest problem with Shanahan is that it was extremely evident around halfway through the third quarter that Garoppolo was completely off. And I feel like it took Shanahan too long to recognize that and alter his play calling. Like, where were the bootlegs? Where is getting Garoppolo outside of the pocket? Where is these RPOs where the ball's getting out of his hand quickly? It was non-existent. It was very concerning to me that Shanahan had a mental coaching lapse like that, whereas he's usually pretty good about making those in-game adjustments, and it just took too long. Garoppolo was terrible. It's hard to explain it any other way than just what Jimmy Garoppolo do we just see? I am having a hard time recalling a game that he's played where he's looked that bad. It just looked like he was second guessing himself. He was too timid with the ball in his hands, not trusting himself, not trusting his receivers. There was that one screen set up to Kyle Juszczyk, and I don't know what happened, if the ball just slipped out of his hands or if he was scared to throw it. Chandler Jones beat the left side of the line. I don't know if it was Trent Williams. There was a tight end there to help. But it's like, what are you doing? You're throwing the ball right into the dirt. It looked like it slipped, like I said. But his confidence was just – it wasn't that Jimmy Garoppolo gunslinging mentality that we've seen where he has the confidence and moxie that he can fit in any ball in any sort of window. That wasn't the Jimmy Garoppolo we saw today. It was like a Jimmy Garoppolo that just recovered from an ACL injury. Like, this is something I would expect from Jimmy Garoppolo week 1 of last year looking like this, not after playing an entire year with a healthy ACL to come out this way.
See, the play you're talking about, Jimmy Garoppolo threw the ball to the dirt. I thought that was actually kind of smart in a way. I mean, Chandler Jones is there. Nothing's going to happen. The play's broken up. He went to go pump fake it, and he tried to bring it back. It slipped out of his hand. Incomplete pass. I mean, I'm fine with that. I'll live with that. Because if you throw it, Chandler Jones is already on the running back. There's a lot that can happen. Chandler Jones could pop that ball in the air, and a disaster could happen. During the third quarter, when I started noticing Jimmy Garoppolo was out of funk and rhythm, I was looking for the Kyle Shanahan special where he leaks someone out wide open on a wheel route, and he waited until the fourth quarter to use it when Juice came out in the fourth quarter on that wheel route. That's something Kyle Shanahan needs to notice a lot faster when Jimmy Garoppolo is struggling. And I think Jimmy Garoppolo also needs to be able to have a little bit more say on the playbook and be able to audible different things. Because when you look at Kyle Shanahan's offense, Kyle gives him 2 plays. Jimmy gets to the line, looks to see what the defense gives him. Usually what happens is he gives him the play before 15 seconds, so then Kyle Shanahan can tell him in his ear, hey, kill, or can, which means to kill the play and get to the next one, or can it get to the next one. And I think that has something to do with the trust to Jimmy Garoppolo. If you trust Jimmy, yeah, give him 2 plays. Now give Jimmy Garoppolo the option, which play do I like better? Which play do I think I can execute at my best of my ability? And I think that limits Jimmy Garoppolo. I mean, when I used to watch Matt Ryan when he was with Kyle Shanahan, I don't remember him giving Matt Ryan 2 plays and saying, all right, when I say kill it, you kill it. No, Matt Ryan had audibles. He would get to the line of scrimmage. He would, hey, that's this. We're doing this. Hey, we're doing this. Julio, you're running the fade. Julio, you're doing this. And I think Jimmy Garoppolo needs to get the keys handed to the offense. So.
And I think that goes back to the trust or lack thereof between Kyle Shanahan and Jimmy Garoppolo, whereas Matt Ryan was an established NFL veteran when Shanahan came over to take over that Falcons offense, where it seems like he's holding Garoppolo's hand a little bit and doesn't trust him taking full reins of the offense. So Garoppolo was not good today. Shanahan was not good today. The defense was not good today. And now we turn the page, look ahead to next week, where the Jets, who just took a pretty tough beating against the Bills, Niners traveling across to the East Coast, play the Jets and Giants back-to-back weeks before coming home to play the Eagles on Sunday Night Football, I believe.
So the New York Jets, I didn't really get to watch that game or anything, but I did look over a quick little recap of them, and their rush game only rushed for 50 yards. You remember, they have Le'Veon Bell and Frank Gore on that team. I mean, we get to go see Frank Gore. That's a plus. I mean, I love Frank Gore, one of my favorite players of all time. But when I'm playing a team who's only rushed for 50 yards and a quarterback that looked out of whack because his coach is the worst coach in the NFL, as a defensive line, I'm licking my chops. Oh, I had a bad week last week. This is where the Niners, I think, they come out and they blow the Jets out of the water. There's no way they could let the Jets stay in the game at all.
I agree. They need to come out and very similarly like they did today, go up 10-0 on the Jets. and just not shoot themselves in the foot by allowing a special teams error. And I wanted to get mad or upset with Dante Johnson on that blocked punt, but it doesn't look like it was his fault. They executed a nice stunt on the blocked punt where Johnson had two guys to block. He picked up the first guy, second guy snuck through behind him, and that just completely changed the complexion of the game.
That's a well play design. It looks like special team coordinator got out-coached as well. So we look at the 49ers coaching staff. Kyle Shanahan, out-coached. Robert Saleh, out-coached. What's his name? Hightower? I believe that's his name. Special team coordinator, out-coached. That is embarrassing. At least if you're gonna lose, at least win the special teams battle. Come on, man. It's special damn team. And then everyone started blaming it on Dante Johnson, I looked at the play right away and I said that was not Dante Johnson's fault. When you're one guy and you're blocking as a fullback in that position, and you have two guys, you literally have to pick one and hope for the best. I mean, his lack of effort to pick up that one guy was kind of embarrassing. But either way, it was going to get blocked either way, whether he blocks one guy or the other. But now looking forward into the future, the New York Jets. What do you fear from the New York Jets going against our defense?
Nothing. I'm not scared of the Jets. I don't think the 49ers most certainly aren't scared of the Jets. The only thing that would be holding them back in this game is some sort of mental barrier and the whispers of the Super Bowl hangover. Because on paper, on the field, they're going to clearly look better than the Jets. It's just a matter of executing and putting to rest that doubt. We're going to get ready to wrap things up here on the second episode of the Faithful Fanatic podcast. Unless anybody has any questions, go ahead and drop them in the comments if there's anything you would like us to discuss that we haven't gone over already. If not, I'm Nick Newman, one of your hosts of the Faithful Fanatic podcast at NinerNick_22. I'm joined with Marco Martinez, Marco_Mart1205. Make sure to follow us both on Twitter and follow the Faithful Fanatic podcast at FaithfulFanPod_. That's the Twitter handle. It is not a victory Monday. We'll see how things go next week against the Jets.
Before we get out of here, Nick, what's your prediction for next week's score? And what?
I'll save that for Friday's pod.
For Friday's pod? You guys got to tune in for Friday's pod, guys.
New episode dropping Friday.